Hey guys, it's Lucky Ghost here, and today we're going to talk about the solo Magicka Sorcerer. We're going to be updating this build for the Flames of Ambition patch, and we're going to talk about what's changed, what hasn't, and discuss the changes that we've made to the build. But don't worry, if this is your first time using this build, I'm going to go over everything in detail. For those of you that have used it before, I'm going to touch on the things that have changed so that it's easy for you to update the build where necessary. First, let's take a look at what changed for the Sorcerer, specifically this patch. And the answer is not a lot. If we look at the list of changes that ZOS made, it's a minor adjustment to crystal frags by 2%. And after that, it was just fixing some bugs in a few of the skills. So all in all, the Magicka Sorcerer is the same exact class that it used to be with a very minor adjustment to crystal frags. Okay, first up, let's talk about our skills. Let's talk about the front bar. The front bar is where we're going to put our spammables and our bar buffers. Bar buffers are abilities that you don't have to use, but they're going to enhance the damage of every ability you cast while you are on that bar. Bar buffers are a great way to improve your damage without complicating your rotation, or in a lot of cases, they actually very much simplify the rotation, and this will be an example of that. So the first skill on the front bar is going to be Empowered Ward. I've got this skill up here front and center because you're going to feel a little bit squishy on a Magicka Sorcerer once you start getting into veteran content until you get into high champion levels. The new CP system has made it a little bit difficult to get damage mitigation and damage at the same time. The damage mitigation nodes won't come until quite a bit later. I'm CP 1200 and I still don't have access to a lot of them. I've got more of a glass cannon direction built into my CP, and so Empowered Ward helps with that. But for now, just know that this ability is going to give you 50% more health, basically. It's going to give us a shield for 9,500 damage. That also, when activated, grants minor intellect to us, increasing our Magicka recovery by 15% for 10 seconds. Whenever you're taking a lot of incoming damage, you can lay down your dots on the back bar, come to the front bar, cast your Empowered Ward, and then go into your spammable for a bit until you feel like you're taking too much damage again, and then you can pop the Empowered Ward and then go back to your spammable and your crystal frags. All right, so next up we've got Force Pulse. Force Pulse is one of my favorite spammables in the game. It just feels good. The reason being is that it's a spammable that cleaves. It hits 3 enemies at a time, so long as the enemies are affected with burning, chilled, or concuss. Well, because we have burning damage, and we have chilled damage if we're using Ice Heart, and we have lightning damage coming from our sorcerer skills, we're always going to have the enemies afflicted with this, which means we're always going to be hitting 3 at a time, which just feels good. Not only that, it's got a smooth cast, it weaves really well, it's just a nice, comfortable skill to use, it's easy to access, and it does a lot of damage, and it hits 3 people at a time. You couldn't ask for more from a spammable, and that's why we're using it. Next up, we have Crystal Fragments. Crystal Fragments hits like a truck, it sounds cool, it feels cool, I love this ability. The way it works is anytime we use any other ability on our character that costs Magicka, there's a 35% chance that we're going to proc this ability, meaning there's a 35% chance that we'll be able to instantly cast this, and when it procs, it will do 66% additional damage and cost 50% less Magicka, which means it's great for our sustain if we're casting it at half price for extra damage anytime we've procced it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of our abilities, we're going to keep our dots and our buffs up, and we're going to use this spammable anytime those are all going until we hear this proc or we see it proc. It makes a very distinct sound, and you can see it when it happens. So I can demonstrate here. Boom, there it is. You can see it down here. It turned pink. Okay, so I'll do it again. Just watch that ability down there. And there, it turned pink again. It's counting down, which means if I press the button, it doesn't have a cast time anymore. I can just hit it, instant cast. Now, if you try to cast this ability when it's not procced, there's a cast time. Here we go. I'll show you what that looks like. It takes a little while, right? It takes a little while. It's got a little wind up to it. It's a really nice animation. It feels good. I have the sound muted because I'm talking to you right now, but it sounds great as well. And because it was procced, it's doing an additional 66% damage and costing us 50% less. Okay, the next skill is Inner Light. This skill is what is known as a bar buffer. We don't ever use it. It just makes everything on this bar do more damage. And because we're going to be spending a lot of time on our front bar, casting our spammable Force Pulse and casting our crystal fragments, this ability is going to get a lot of use up here on the front bar. While slotted, our max magicka is increased by 5%, and we gain major prophecy, increasing our spell critical rating. This is more important than ever before because spell critical was nerfed on crit sets like Mother Sorrow and Medusa. It's harder now than ever before to get critical damage. And so what we're doing is we're making changes to the builds, some of them I'll talk about today, to maximize the amount of uptime we have on as much critical as possible to claw our way back to as close to a critical rating as we had before. So as I mentioned, this is a bar buffer, so it's giving us that major prophecy. It's increasing our max magicka by 5%. And the reason that we slot abilities that increase our max magicka on mag builds is because part of the damage equation is based on the size of our magicka pool. So the more magicka we have, the larger our mag pool is, the more damage every ability we cast does. Hopefully that makes sense. But basically the way the formula works out to, it's about every 1,000 magicka equals 100 spell damage for your character. So the more magicka you have, the more damage your abilities do. And so that's one of the reasons that this can be a fantastic bar buffer. But that's not all it's doing. Believe it or not, not only is it giving us that 5% max mag, it's also giving major prophecy as we just discussed, but in the Mage's Guild, there's a passive that says increases your max magicka and mag recovery by 2% for each Mage's Guild ability slotted. Well, this build has 2 Mage's Guild abilities slotted on the front bar. We've got Inner Light, which we don't use, and we've got Shooting Star, which we don't use. So between these 2 abilities, that's another 4% max mag and 4% mag recovery. So these are bar buffers. We're not using them. We're just putting them here because it's making these 2 abilities right here, our spammable and our instant cast, they're going to be doing more damage. Okay, the final ability on the front bar is Summon Twilight Matriarch. It's a sorcerer summon, which means we have to have it on both the front and back bar. Otherwise, it just disappears when we switch bars. It means whenever you're running pets on a Sorc, it's really taking up a lot of space on your character. It really limits the amount of skills that you can put onto it. But sometimes that's also nice because what that means is it's also simplifying your rotation a little bit. It's also a little bit of a bar buffer just by having this here. There's a sorcerer passive which increases our max health anytime our pet is summoned. So having this here, having the pet summon, increases our health pool. Not only that, it does a decent bit of damage, and if we press 5 again while it's already summoned, it's going to heal us nearly up to full every time we cast it, so long as the matriarch is alive to do so. What you'll find is occasionally, if you don't keep an eye on it, if you don't press the heal button to heal both it and yourself on occasion, it will eventually die. So just make sure to tap that button once in a while to heal it and you back up to full, just to make sure it's there when you actually need it to heal you. And the final ability, we touched on it, Shooting Star. This is an ability we slot on the front bar. You can use it if you want, but the ultimate on the back bar is going to be the one that does the most damage for us. This is just here to buff the front bar. Okay, so now let's go back to the back bar. This is where we put our dots and our buffs, right? The skills that are lasting longer, the skills that you hit it once and then you can forget about it for a little while and go to work on the front bar, casting your spammable and your instant cast. Back here, we've got Unstable Wall of Fire. This is a cornerstone to any magic build because it pairs with the Maelstrom Staff. Anytime an enemy is standing in this fire damage, our light attacks do quite a bit more damage to it. So it's buffing our light attacks, and we light attack between every single ability, which means this buff to our light attacks ends up adding quite a bit of damage to our rotation. The second ability on the back bar is Boundless Storm. Manifest yourself as pure lightning, zapping nearby enemies with electricity, dealing shock damage every 1 second for 23 seconds. This ability has a nice long duration, which is great because we can cast it, we can forget about it for a long while. And while we're in this form, we gain Major Resolve, which is going to increase our resistance by almost 6,000. What this means is when things hit us, we're going to take significantly less damage. So try to keep this up at all times when you're fighting something that hits hard or when you're surrounded by enemies. Make sure that this is up. If you're doing difficult veteran content like Maelstrom Arena, Vateshran Hallows, or you're in a veteran dungeon, keeping this up will go a long way to keep your character on his feet. On top of that, activating this grants Major Expedition for a brief period, increasing our move speed by 30% for 4 seconds. This feels good. Anytime you're traveling, you're going to find that you just spam this ability as you're running around because it's going to increase your move speed by 30%, and you can feel that. So go ahead and feel free to spam it when you're going from one place to the next. Next up, we've got Critical Surge. This ability is one of the reasons why the Sorcerer was the best in slot solo class for a very, very long time. Invoking Meridia's name to gain major brutality and sorcery, increasing our weapon and spell damage by 20% for 33 seconds. This is great. This is nice. We're using the ability anyway. We're not using it for this, but because we're using it, we get this, which is great. 20% spell damage means we've now got major brutality and major sorcery from abilities slotted on our bars, which means we don't have to use the potions that cost 300 to 400 gold a piece right now. They're ridiculously expensive. And even if you buy the cheaper iterations of those potions, you're still looking at over 200 gold a pop. You don't have to use those. You can use the basic Essence of Magicka potions and you'll be just fine because you've already got the buffs that those would provide. And like I said, that's not the main reason we're using this though. That just happens to be a nice side effect. We're using this because while active, dealing critical damage heals you for 3,300 health. This effect can occur once every second. Now, our character is built to crit as often as possible, not only for damage, but to make sure that we're proccing things like this as often as possible. That's going to ensure that we've constantly got life coming back in. Abilities like Boundless Storm, Wall of Elements, and our next ability here, Mystic Orb, there are dots that are constantly ticking, and anytime one of these dots crits, boom, 3,300 health comes back to our character, making us incredibly difficult to kill. All right, and let's talk about Mystic Orb. It's a globe of annihilation that slowly floats forward, dealing 1,198 damage every half second to nearby enemies. And if you're with a friend, they can activate this for synergy to give them resources back. This is one of the hardest hitting AoE dots in the entire game. It can be a little bit of a hassle to get because you do have to level up your Undaunted guild quite a way to unlock it. But once you get it, it's 100% worth it. Until you get this, feel free to use any dot that looks fun or looks cool. You can use Lightning Flood, for instance, to hold you over until you level up that Undaunted guild. And that'll do the job pretty nicely for you. And the final ability on the back bar, as we mentioned, is going to be Summon Twilight Matriarch because this has to be double barred. There's not much more to add to this. It works the same on the back as it does on the front bar. Finally, we have our ultimate, Fiery Rage. Create a cataclysmic storm at the target location that builds for 2 seconds and then lays waste to all enemies in the area, dealing 9,000 flame damage every second for 7 seconds. Basically, when you cast this on a group of enemies, they will be dead by the time it's over. The only thing that would survive is if you had a boss standing in the middle of those enemies, but he'll be a lot worse for the wear anyway. So this is a great skill. It's one of my favorite ultimates in the game. It feels good, it looks good, and it just works really well. Okay, let's briefly touch on the rotation for this build. What we're gonna do, like I kind of mentioned, is our back bar is going to be where our longer duration abilities are so that we don't have to come back here very often. So we're going to come back here at the beginning of a fight. We will use our buffs first, right? Our Boundless Storm and our Crit Surge. So now we've got those long buffs on us. Then we're going to cast our Wall of Elements and our Necrotic Orb. Now we've got our dots ticking and our buffs going, which means the enemy is just going to be constantly taking damage, which means we're going to be constantly having life coming back into us. This is very important with this build. As long as you are doing damage to the enemy, you cannot die. And the easiest way to make sure you're constantly doing damage to the enemy is to keep your dots on them. So get those, get the back bar going, get the dots out, get your buffs up, and then go to the front bar and use your spammable, which is going to be our Force Pulse. And then when we proc that Crystal Frag, we're going to use the Crystal Frag. And then when the back bar starts dropping like it is now, we'll go back there, we'll reapply those dots, and we'll go to the front bar and use the Force Pulse until we proc our Crystal Shards and keep going back and forth between Force Pulse and Crystal Frags. Okay. Then, you know, our buffs will drop and we'll recast the buffs. We'll go back to the front bar. Same thing, rinse and repeat. So it's just a matter of casting your 2 abilities on the front bar until something on the back bar drops off. Go back there and reapply it. Now, you'll have the bird up during this whole affair. Here's the bird. He likes to get in the way, so we'll move him over there. And then as for the Empowered Ward, you'll just use that anytime you see your health bouncing around. You're going to constantly have health coming back in, but let's say you see it consistently bouncing down to about 50% or below. That's a good time to pop the shield and then continue your rotation. That's going to give you a nice little thick protection. It's going to give you 9,000 extra health basically to work with, and you can just work that into your rotation. You can see there the shield effect on my health bar, which means I can cast these abilities and then I can just pop the shield again if they start eating through it. It's just basically giving you a lot more wiggle room in tense situations. And then finally, we have the ultimate on the back bar. You can cast this whenever you want. There's no right or wrong time to cast this. Let's get rid of the bird. By the way, you can come in here and unsummon your bird anytime you want. You can just open up your character menu, right click on the bird, and it will disappear. This goes for any summon in the game, as well as various buffs. If you have a food buff or some other buff in here you want to get rid of, you can just right click it and that will remove it from you. All right, next up, let's talk about gear. First, let's talk about the monster set that you're going to be wearing to start with. If you're not wearing the Ring of the Pale Order, then you've got two options for your monster set. You can either go with Ice Heart for a more defensive setup. It's going to provide a shield. It's going to help keep you alive. Or you can go with Alambris for a more offensive setup. Alambris is a great monster set for putting out damage. If you're low CP or if you're new to the game, I would start with Ice Heart, get comfortable with that. And then if you ever get to the point where you wish you did a little more damage, maybe consider switching over to Alambris. Or if you're in a group setting where you have a tank in front of you, then Alambris would be better than the Ice Heart set. As for your body pieces, we're going to go with Mother's Sorrow. This is a set that has been best in slot forever. It's great for the beginning content and it's still great for the end game content. This is a set beginners and veterans wear from day 1 to day 1001. Nothing else provides as much crit as this set, and for that reason, we're wearing it. For our jewelry and weapons, we're going to go with Burning Spellweave. Burning Spellweave is going to pair really nicely with Mother Sorrow, and just like Mother Sorrow, this patch, Burning Spellweave, is going to be very useful all the way from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Burning Spellweave is nice because it's not only giving us Magicka, but it's giving us crit, which we talked about how important that is, and it provides a ton of spell damage. You're going to front bar Burning Spellweave, back bar your Maelstrom Inferno Staff. Until you get your Maelstrom Inferno Staff, you can back bar Burning Spellweave or any other Inferno Staff of your choice. It's not very important. For this build, we're going to be going with 6 pieces of light armor and then 1 piece of heavy. All of the gear is going to be divines. The jewelry is going to be bloodthirsty. The front bar weapon is going to be precise, and the back bar weapon is going to be infused. All of this information and more will be in the written guide in the description so that you can more easily refer to each piece and what traits and what enchants it should have on it. Be sure to check that link out in the description below. All right, next up, let's cover the end game gear, the gear that you want to eventually wear, the gear that is going to be the best for this character overall. If you're not wearing a Ring of Pale Order, then you've got 2 options still. It's the same 2 as before, Ice Heart if you're soloing, or Alambris if you're in group content, and you have a tank in front of you so that you can just focus on being glass cannon-y. On the body, we're still going to wear that same Mother Sorrow, just like I was telling you before. It's good in the beginning and it's amazing in the end. It's just a really good set, so we're going to continue to use it. The thing that does change, but does not have to change, but if you have the ability and you have access to go to Sunspire, then I would highly recommend going and picking up 5 pieces of False Gods for your jewelry and your front bar weapon. False Gods is an amazing sustain because it gives you a ton of damage, but it also gives you a ton of sustain, which can be really, really useful when doing solo content like Vateshran Hallows, where the fights can go on for a little while. And if you don't have great sustain built into your character, it can be a bit of a slog and it can get quite dangerous for you. Usually, if this character dies, it's because you ran out of Magicka. So as long as you have Magicka, that means you can cast your shield. That means you can keep your dots down. That means you constantly have life coming back in. And so really, as long as you've got Magicka, you can stay alive, which is why False Gods is so great for solo content on a Magicka toon. And for the back bar, we're going to continue to use the Maelstrom Inferno Staff. Now, if you are using the Ring of the Pale Order, which I highly recommend doing when you're soloing, it's fun to use and your best defense becomes your offense. As long as you keep the pressure up, you can't die. It's just a really fun item to use. So if you have it, what you're going to do is you're just going to wear 1-piece monster set. The piece I recommend going for is any 1-piece set that provides crit for the 1-piece bonus. A great example of this would be your Ice Heart that you already collected. Wearing 1 piece of that Ice Heart is going to give you crit. So go with that. If you're wearing the Ring of the Pale Order, you'll wear the Ice Heart helmet, you'll wear a False Gods or Burning Spellweave shoulder, and then you'll wear Ring of the Pale Order where that False Gods or Burning Spellweave would have been on the ring finger slot. Next up, let's talk about consumables. As we talked about before, you can get away with using the cheap Essence of Magicka potions on this build. That's going to save you a ton of money. As for the food, we have so much health this patch, but we also lost a lot of damage mitigation. So you've got 2 options. You can either go with Ghastly Eyeball, which is Magicka parse food, basically. It's going to provide max mag and mag recovery. So if you find that you're not having any trouble staying alive, but you are running out of Magicka, then go ahead and use this. This is going to give you a ton of sustain it'll be a lot harder to run out of Magicka using Ghastly Eye Bowl. Now, on the other hand, if you find that you're always full on Magicka and you just can't spend it fast enough, then go ahead and go with the buy stat food, Solitude Salmon Millet Soup. This is going to give you max health and max Magicka, but it's not going to give you any mag recovery. So it'll be a lot easier to run your mag pool dry with this, but you'll also have quite a bit more health, about 5,000 more health while you're wearing this food, which is quite a bit. Next up, let's talk about our attributes. We're going to put all 64 points into Magicka. We don't need to put any into health this patch because we have tons of health now, thanks to the new CP system. And as for our Mundus, we're going to switch away from Shadow, and now this patch we're going to be using the Thief. Because of the crit nerf on gear, we're going to use our Mundus to help make up for what we lost and help to get our crit rating back up higher. Next up, let's go over passives. You're going to go ahead and grab all of your class passives. You can start with the ones that look relevant to your character, but ultimately I would recommend grabbing all of them because as you master your class, you're going to begin swapping skills in and out. You've got a couple of flex spots on this build. Your Empowered Ward is a little bit of a flex spot. Your Twilight Matriarch can be a flex spot if you want it to. This would open up 2 ability slots for you. If you got rid of this, I would put a bar buffer on the front maybe, and then put something like Elemental Drain on the back bar so that you are not only debuffing the enemy, but you are improving your sustain at the same time. You're going to take all of your weapon passives for the Destruction Staff. You're going to take all of the light armor passives and all of the heavy armor passives because we're going to wear 6 pieces of light and 1 piece of heavy. You're going to take the Mages Guild passives that apply, which are going to be primarily Magicka Controller. This is the one that's going to increase our Magicka and Magicka recovery for each Mage's Guild ability slotted. If you decide that you're going to use Shooting Star rather than just solely use it as a bar buffer, you want to cast it from time to time, then go ahead and pick up the other Mage's Guild passives as well. Otherwise, you don't really need them. We're going to pick up both Undaunted passives. You should definitely get Continuous Attack level 1. This is what's going to make you move 30% faster anytime you're on a mount. And of course, we're going to grab all of our racial passives. And last but not least, Medicinal Use level 3. You are going to want this so that your potions have 100% uptime. All right, as for our champion points, first we're going to put 40 points into Precision, 50 into Fighting Finesse. Then we're going to go into Piercing. We're going to put 40 points into Piercing. Then we're going to put 50 points into Deadly Aim, 50 points into Thaumaturge, 50 points into Biting Aura. And then do be sure to slot Finesse, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, and Biting Aura onto your bar up here. If you don't slot these onto the bar, they don't do anything. They're not going to work. These are slottable nodes. They must be slotted in order to take effect. The rest of the things that we talk about will not need to be slotted to work. So next up, we're going to get Eldritch Insight. We're going to put 40 points into that. Then we're going to go back into the elbow over here, and we're going to go to Flawless Ritual. We're going to put 20 points into that to unlock this War Mage node, and we're going to max that out with 30 points. Then we're going to come back and fill in Flawless Ritual. Then we're going to go to this chest node here, and we're going to put 10 points into Quick Recovery, and then 40 points into Preparation, and then 40 points into Elemental Aegis, and then we're going to put 40 points into Hardy, and then we're going to finish off Quick Recovery. We're going to fill it up with another 30 points. And if you prefer, I've got this all in written form on the website. The link to the written version of the champion points will be in the description below, in case you just want to look at it and fill it in that way. And also, once you get past this point and you wonder what you should put points into next, that'll be in that as well. As for the red tree, we're going to go ahead and do Boundless Fatality for 50 points, Rejuvenation, 50 points. And remember, you need to slot the slottables. Then we're going to jump into Tumbling for 45 points, Mystic Tenacity for 10, Hero's Vigor for 40. Then we're going to bump up here and grab another slottable in Siphoning Spells and max that out with 50 points. Then get our last slottable, Ironclad. We're going to max that out with another 50 points. Then we'll go back down here to Tumbling and finish that off with another 30 points. Then we'll go over here to Defiance, put 40 points in. Then we'll come over here to the sword area here, and we'll put 8 points into Hasty, 40 points into Tireless Guardian, 45 points into Fortification. And then we'll go back and fill up Hasty. And once you get to this point and beyond, reference the written guide in the description below, as at this point, we're still not even halfway through the 3,600 champion points that you're going to be able to earn. Last, but definitely not least, is the green CP tree. This tree is very much a tree of personal preference. There's not really any power here, so there's not a right or a wrong way to choose this. What I would do is, honestly, Pick the things that look the most interesting to you or the most fun and go ahead and spec into those. And don't stress it too much. If it looks fun, use it. If you want to go for node farming, then invest in the node farming node. If you want to go fishing, grab the fishing node. The ones that I will say look universally useful are going to be reducing the cost of way shrines. Steed's Blessing is probably one of my favorite ones. It's going to increase our move speed outside of combat by 20%. You're going to very much feel this once you've got it maxed out. And be sure to slot it once you get it. Breakfall is pretty fun. It reduces your fall damage by 35% once you've maxed it out. I've already survived falls that have killed me a million times because of this node. So go ahead and take a look around here and get the things that look interesting to you. I'm going to leave it to you to pick what you want to use here because, as I said, there's not really a right or a wrong way. There's no power or there's no min-maxing here. It's just, you know, what looks fun and what looks useful to your character specifically. All right, guys, and that is going to wrap it up. I am your host, Lucky Ghost, and this is another solo build guide. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me in the comments below. I try to answer every single one. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe so that YouTube knows to recommend it to more people. And if you ever want to hang out with somebody else who loves ESO, be sure to swing by my stream. I will put the link down below. Until next time, guys.